While a whole bunch of people are talking about how Glalie needs to be banned from ADVNU for setting spikes and all that, there is another Pokemon. Not ban worthy, mind you, nobody's talking about it like that, but Pokemon that needs to be talked about, because I feel like it's not people forgetting about it, but it's honestly kind of been impressing me more than it used to. That is Metang. Now, Metang is universally regarded as one of the top like 6 or so Pokemon in the format. So why is it shocking me? Or not even shocking me, but just kind of making me go, that's a pretty good mon. Well, I think these battles do a pretty good job of showing it. And in specific, Agility Metang. We are seeing people finally decide once again, you know what? I'm tired of using Toxic and Protect and just sitting around doing nothing with Metang. I want to win. I want to Meteor Mash spam these like water types that can't actually break me, at least not quickly. I want to get them attack boosts. I want to go get that speed boost. I want to start mashing some more. So I think it was these 2 games we actually saw Metang do stuff in. Leave a like, subscribe down below. I also have a Gen 8 game. You'll know why once we watch the game like this. It's in the video. Oh my god. Game 1 that we got today, Hey Sup Shiloh. This is week 1 of NUCL. It's ADV, so there's no preview, but we get Raticate and Chan. And Hey Sup with a lead Raticate is very interesting for many reasons. One, Raticate functionally doesn't really operate as a lead in this tier. It's preserved in the back normally, and it'll run anything from like a Choice Band set to a Silk Scarf set to something with like substitute with Reversal and the Lychee Berry. And it'll operate as this pretty good sweeper. You throw it out once like the Metang or the Torkoal or both, the Sableye. Once those types of Pokemon are gone, once you can make sure there's no Hitmonchan to punch you in the throat and take you down, and you go just ham. Also, of course, big benefit of being the fastest Pokemon in the tier, at least in terms of unboosted speed, meaning hey, you vibe check things like Haunter and Plusle even, which are some of the other fast demons. So using it as a lead is interesting, and we end up seeing why later in the game, but it's actually because it has Taunt, and this allows you to be one of the few Taunt Pokemon that can outrun Glalie and actually get a Taunt off on it. Now, is this always reliable? No. Glalie sometimes wants to run Icy Wind in the lead slot if it's like dead set on getting hazards. But the cool thing about this rat was it was Taunt T-Wave, so you actually have extra leverage even around that. So it's a very cool pick by Hey Sup, deviating from the standard affairs that you normally see in the lead slots, which is usually just, frankly nowadays, it's usually like pure offense. I see a lot of like lead Flare, lead Whale, like offensive Wailord, offensive Hitmonchans, Torkoals. I know I'm saying some monster, you're like, what do you mean offensive Wailord, offensive Torque? Like, what do you mean, brother? Yeah, it gets real out here, man. And although this rat is probably still an offensive EV spread, I'd have to check, it's playing definitely not an offensive role. Now, Haunter switched in, Sableye comes out, and here Hey Sup, I will admit, takes a weird line to me. He T-bolts the Sableye, lives a Shadow Ball, he's got a very bulky Haunter, probably like a modest 16 special attack EV set with a ton of HP. And he tries trading damage on Sableye. It just doesn't matter though, because Sableye runs a ton of special defense in this tier, in large part for Haunter. So, I mean, he kind of just wastes them on for a while, but my guess is he does it because there's something he's trying to prep for in the back. And now we see the interaction here. Rat gets out versus the Glalie. The Glalie is also lefties, so you know that it's not going to have like a Lum Berry or anything to avoid a T-Wave. So he taunts it, denies the spike, forces a switch, and T-Waves the Sableye. So works quite literally perfectly. Obviously, he didn't T-Wave the Glalie, but he prevented the spike going up from Shiloh, and you were able to get a paralysis on, well, hey, you see these few mons, they don't love Sableye, so hey, it's pretty good to actually get some progress made. He stays there to get a little bit of chip, kind of just testing the waters to see what this thing's overall moveset is. We now have it entirely confirmed. The Glalie can come back out once again. He could opt for more spikes. He could try and hit this more if he wants to fish for full paras. Instead, he doubles out to Raticate, probably predicting the Glalie here so that he can throw off a taunt once again and just keep denying it from ever doing anything. So this time the Chan switches in on the predicted taunt. He can go look for a Rapid Spin here, but Hey Sup says no, goes to his Haunter, And he actually is able to get the Psychic off here. Shiloh does not opt for the Sableye, because if he does, there is the chance that he gets T-bolted, and then just would be two-shot with the help of that Spike. So Haunt goes down, Tropius comes out, the Chan does get a spin off, but Big Throat Boy gets to pick it off with Hidden Power Flying, as now Glalie Mirror happens, and you know what that means. Yeah, spikes. So, kind of funny to me. He did spin a good amount of turns looking for that spin, and it doesn't matter. The spikes are back. So, Glalie booms on the Glalie. Pretty standard ADVNU affair. Two Glalies staring at each other, and one of them eventually deciding, man, I'm sick of this bullcrap. Anyhow, we now see that this was probably why Haisup was willing to try and trade stuff early versus the Sableye, in the event that, you know, maybe he gets a paralysis, maybe he gets a crit even, or just something goes like really well versus Sableye. He has a choice abandoned Hitmonchan, and as y'all see, with just that little bit of chip he got, now Rock Slide is an easy 2-hit KO on the Sableye, and from here it's looking kind of bleak for Shiloh. You've lost Sableye. At most, I would think maybe there's a Chimecho in the back, but I probably would have gone to it there if you had one, right? I mean, look at the team. I'm thinking Ground Immune is pretty likely last slot. Haunter could be an option there too, but his team is so stally, I wouldn't think it'd be a Haunter. Kind of hard to really predict what's going on. Anyhow, an Octillery switches in. Dugong Ice Beam crits it pretty quickly. Very unfortunate if you're Haisup, just because Octillery is not known for its bulk, especially in ADV where you no longer have EVs in literally every stat. Does get a T-Wave off on the Gonger. We're also seeing its 3 attacks, which tells me it's probably like Encore last instead of opting for a Rest Tox set, or maybe like a Protect Toxic one, which can also go Encore at once and just run like Mono Ice Beam. Bandit Chen gets back out though, Sky Up cuts, and yeah, we see Flareon last, and when I saw this in-game, I was like, what? Why is there a Flareon here, man? And when it double-edged, I was like, what? Why did it double-edge? Though, for what it's worth, this double-edge chip is not offensive flare at all. This, to me, looks like he wanted a little bit of maybe insurance for opposing Flareon, because he's got a Dugong instead of something like Whale or Pelipper even. Although Pelipper gets folded by HP Electric, so ignore that. I feel like maybe, though, this is him trying to have another Mon on his team that can trade versus opposing Flare, because he didn't like how the 6 operated into it. So this probably is still like something like a Wish set. It's just kind of like, oh, I don't know about him here. Fails to even KO the Chan. Bell comes out here. Sky Cut, of course, is coming out, except you're slower because this is like absolute minimum speed Banded Chan. And this is potentially like Sunny Day Blossom. So it's not really a stall at all. It just kind of looks like a fat team, which also has me wondering then maybe it's just a Flareon with no attack, and that's why the double edge didn't kill. It could be like max HP Chan and then no attack or very minimal attack Flare, and you got like double edge, Fire Blast, HP Electric, filler or whatever. I could see something like that playing out, but naturally, just like with Haisup's team, I'd have to ask Shiloh what was going on there. So Haisup with a very cool win, using a very offbeat team. I really think this is a cool way to experiment in the tiers still. Tropius is a mon that has not been meta in literal years. When I first started getting into ADVNU, it was actually a pretty good mon. It was like A-ish on the viability rankings. And back then it was a much better sweeper. Nowadays it's literally like down in PU because of how ADV PU technically still actively tiers. The old gens are weird, but it's fallen off really hard. So to see it come back, to see a lead Raticate, and hell, even a back Octillery that's not just being baton passed too. Some very unique ideas here that not very common at all. And I mean, hey, Shiloh's team is unique too, for better or for worse. You decide which one. I think if I were to pick one gripe with it, it's just I don't really like the Chan counterplay if you have just mixed defensive Sableye. Bandit Chan has seen a bit of a resurgence, I would argue, lately. Chan had a weird kind of lull a couple years back, then it came back really strong, especially once Glalie surged to the forefront of the meta, because, well, you know, Chan's the only spinner in the tier. Wartortle, I'm not gonna acknowledge you, so you may as well run the spinner to beat the ice type. And Bandit Chan is just naturally still really strong, especially as these Sableye have stopped running fully physically defensive and gone for these mixed defensive EV spreads with a lot of special bulk, so they can check Pokemon like Haunter and Chimecho, and even some ones like Blossom and Mixed Flareon, just to like take that one hit from them and then have maybe a Toxic follow-up, or if in the case of Blossom, maybe you're just trying to stall out Sun. Or, I mean, hell, even in the case of Flareon, maybe we're just trying to stall for a miss from Fire Blast. You got options like that, though. Game 2. The Chungler, I guess going by Dracopope here, versus Violet River. Lead matchup here, a Flareon into a Torkoal. Once upon a time, this would probably have not been terrible for the Flareon. Nowadays, though, Torkoal in the lead especially runs with a lot of Rock Slide, because you are not trying to get gooned up by sub pass Flareon. It is a pretty common lead. As for Overheat misses, yeah, Overheat was the worst move they could have ever had on the set this game. You'll see why. Until pumps the Glalie as it comes out, and because Glalie's unlikely to boom immediately, I mean, you've revealed nothing. So I see 2 Mons. This is the start to the most standard explosion spam team of all time, with a Wailord, a Metang, and a Haunter, and a Chimecho, or whatever other Mon you feel like running that day, in the back. So Rain Dance is always pretty free here, though what I feel is less free is switching out the next turn into Metang. Now, they did Protect here. I just don't really understand it, because I don't know what you're trying to catch. Like, the most likely response, right, if they are not keeping the Glalie in, would be a Water type. I don't feel like going Metang really threatens anything at all, because, okay, boom, but congrats, if you have 3 Mons, a lot of Water types from Protect, the bulky ones like Dugong, Whale, even Pelly sometimes, and it could still have like a Sableye or a Haunter, or, I was gonna say Mischievous, it's not legal. I wanted to say some meme Mon last, Duskull, that's the one, or Duskull in the back. So, I don't know, this was weird to me. I don't think this double did anything. I don't know, maybe they were scared of missing? Tough to say. We see Protect. Obviously, at this point, we know this is a super bulky Glalie. Just runs Protect, by the way, for, well, okay, there's technically 2 reasons. 1, deny opposing Glalie explosion. 2, technically deny some other booms from, like, Wailord. I'm getting too specific, but mostly it's lefty's recovery. And yeah, the Metang goes for Toxic here. I would have just Mash spammed, but I get Toxic because of this being here. And, again, what I said earlier, bulky Water. There's going to be one on this team. Torque comes out again. Flareon is sacked here, although it dodges an Overheat. You could argue that's worse for Chungler, just because it would have gotten Flash Fire. Maybe Fire Blast technically does more with Flash Fire. I'd have to calc. But the Flareon does end up going down here. And here you do have to pump. Just, you can't allow this to boom on you. And we do see the Glalie sack here. Pump does just enough to 2-shot from that range. And now here, Violet goes into the Plusle. So Huntail has to switch. Glalie revealed from Chungler as well. Probably a pretty specially defensive one. You normally see the bulky Glalies reserved for being in the back. Offensive Glalie technically can manifest itself anywhere, but defensive Glalie is usually reserved for back slots. As the Plusle passes out into Metang, a Spike is set. Now we have a Metang Mirror. This ends up going really well for Violet, though, because they immediately get an attack raise. And their Metang, you know what? They're a little bit frisky. They like to go zoom, 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 zoom. You'll see soon. Not yet, but soon. Soon, chat. You could also tell they're more offensive, just given the difference in damage rolls here. It's 72 to 40. So this would have done like 48 without the boost. We do see the agility here. So agility Metang's whole thing, pretty much. You still have a lot of good defensive prowess, even if you're just doing something like max attack, some speed benchmark, and then dumping into HP, because you're a steel type. You could still end up checking mons like Haunter, even Eradicate, and kind of, what's the other one? Chimecho to an extent, just because you don't die in one hit. And with Mash, being able to boost your attack, you do have a lot of interactions where you can just fish for an attack boost. Maybe you even accidentally get an attack boost somewhere along the way. And since Metang's pretty hard to KO in one hit, you get this agility boost. Now you actually have a lot of sweeping potential here. So Chungus loses his Metang here. The other Metang is slowly but surely regenerating HP. Fortunately for Chungus, he does have this sequence here where he can just sack the Huntail. You don't really love Huntail at this point anyway, because Plusle's faster, will always T-bolt you. There's still unrevealed Water type, most likely, in the back as well. And this forces a boom or a switch, and at least then you get a little bit more information. And if they go into Water type, you probably get a pump into a hidden power on them, so it's not the end of the world. If anything, what I find interesting is the fact that they didn't switch. As it tells me, or it makes me wonder, what's their water? And then you see here, it's actually their own Huntail. So Chungus has to switch here. You don't want to boom immediately. And he goes to his Haunter just because, well, if a Ghost comes out, well, Haunter versus Haunter's okay. Psychic KOs Chungus's Haunter. And in here, we see him get bailed out probably about as hard as he could have asked for. He goes as Glalie. The right play here for Violet is to sack Torque. Torque doesn't really likely offer a whole lot against possible last slots. Like, I'm thinking maybe it's a Chimecho. It's going to be something faster than Torkoal is all that really matters. It could be a Chimecho. I could see a Blossom maybe. Though I think it needs to be something that helps against Chan, because it seems really slow. Chan kind of maims you, because this can't one-shot Chan with Psychic. Everything else just potentially is outsped, so it's kind of tough. He sacks this though. T-Bolt never is going to kill the Glalie, and he just dies to Shadow Ball here. He didn't even try to endure. Maybe he's not Patai and he's Salic instead, but this ends up being really bad. Because after Glalie goes down, well, the last one's a Chan. So I guess I'm wrong. And this Hitmonchan really likes its Wheaties. It likes its Whey Powder. It goes for Bulk Up. With Haunter gone, there is not a Mon that's faster to threaten Psychic after this T-Bolt. That T-Bolt chip's enough for Haunter or Psychic to smoke it. But now, since you sacked the Haunter, you have to do this. You gotta go Huntail and try to Hydro Crit, which you don't. And Sky Uppercut into Mach Punch is obviously going to kill the Huntail. And then, I mean, there's technically still an out here if Uppercut misses. But Chungus is not like that. He lands his uppercuts, and he does end up winning the game. Off a bit of a bail, but I would still say he played it pretty well overall. I think both players played this game, like, accurately. It's just like each player had one turn where I was like, ooh, stinky. And Violet's team also does a good job of showcasing how you can avoid a bulky water type in a building by utilizing these defensive Glalie sets. It's really weird that a defensive ice type, like pure ice, before boots, no recovery move. It's weird to see it function this well, but you know, a lot of it is just ADV NU. It's not like the power level super high. So base 80 stats all around is actually pretty good. And then 2, there's no Stealth Rock. Yeah, you got spikes, but Stealth Rock's always been the big thing. To take Rock's chip, you'd have to have every layer up. So, I like this setup. I think this is a very solid team. Definitely weak into Chan, just because the Torque's the lead. So you can run into some issues. And I think this is an offensive Haunter as well with EVs. It could technically be a bulkier one. I mean, we even saw Haysup had a Pinchberry Haunter that was very clearly a bit bulkier than the average one. So Violet, there's no reason that they couldn't be opting for that as well. Anyhow, Neomon versus Medea. If you haven't noticed, by the way, Chungus and Neomon are 2 people on my NUCL team. Wonder why I'm covering these games. Anyhow, I'm sure it's irrelevant. Glalie lead into Arbok. And I'm going to yap a little more because if you're watching these videos, you love the yap. And if you don't love the yap, find someone else to watch. I ain't gonna stop. So, Arbok. Why do we see an Arbok here? Well, Chan Resurgence. That's a big reason. Arbok's pretty good into that. Arbok also just has a lot of good coverage into defensive cores of the format. Like, Sludge Bomb does generically good chip to Chimechos. EQ obviously pops the shit out of Metang. And then you have moves like Hidden Power Ghost, Rock Slide that can do good chip to Haunter. Then Pelipper. So just generically speaking, pretty solid mon. Also Sableye. I don't say Sableye's fallen off. The Sab's at least dipped in usage enough to where you don't worry as much about that just walling your existence forever. But if there's anything to take from Sableye, it's the same thing about God, can't speak. Hitmonchan from earlier, where they don't go full Fizz Def anymore, so there's a little bit more hope in that matchup. Also, Intimidate means you don't actually care about Glalie nearly as much. You can just throw off Rock Slide or Sludge Bomb even, turn 1, and it's pretty chill. As you see there, big chip, and it's a speed tie as well. You live the EQ, so basically just a game of chicken. Medea wins the game of chicken, Rock Slides again, gets a little bit of chip on Metang, and by a little bit, I mean 1%. The lefties will kick in, but they don't. So there's a switch. The Glalie comes out, sets a spike and dies. That's the ADVNU special from the Broken Mon. As now Wigglytuff comes out. Very uncommon Pokemon, but it's a pretty cool option. Just very, very, very bulky. It's got a lot of cool coverage as well. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with the Wiggles. A Fire Blast crit there is pretty terrible for Medea. We see another build, by the way, where the water type isn't really a traditional bulky one. Instead, she opted for an Octillery, which typically, you know, more offensive profile. Really good coverage, has T-Wave even for some fun utility. One of my favorite teams I've ever built uses an offensive Octillery lead, so it's really cool. And yeah, Metang versus Torque, this sucks. So you gotta switch. Pelly comes out, takes a Fire Blast. HP Electric's technically a threat, but you are faster. This Torkoal does not want to get Swift. So, also when you have a full health Octillery, why would you not go to it? Takes nothing. Neomon has to care about HP Electric himself now. So Wiggles comes back out, takes the T-Wave. And this T-Wave, I'm gonna tell you right now, this T-Wave ends up being so annoying for us. I hate it so much. Surf to the Wiggly. Toxic on the Oct. Fortunately, it was not a Lumberry one, it's just lefties. We really only see Lum in lead anyway, maybe even on Baton Pass, but I digress. Wish Pass here, though, is going to let you get back to full Mono Fire Blast, by the way. This man said, I hate Blossom. Gets the Wish Pass, though. And with Oct Toxic, it really needs to hope for like a crit or full Paras. Otherwise, Wiggles is just going to continue to protect Wish and cycle that for the entire existence of that Octillery, like you see here. Goes for the Protect as the Torque comes out here. Fire Blast misses, not really the biggest deal. Toxic misses well, so the turn basically never happened. But then Medea gets really tilted and goes for Explosion. I think predicting the Torkoal, predicting the Pelipper here. And as you see, a Metang came out immediately after. So I wonder what she was hoping to set up for. Curious, very curious indeed. So Metang's out, mashes the Wiggles in the face. No attack boost, but a full para is still really, really good. Gets you another turn to freely mash. No para, no, yes para. No attack boost once again. Wigglytuff hates everything about this. So that is 2 turns of Fire Blast chip, obviously lost. But now as the Pelly comes out, you do get the mash boost. And agility this time was actually predicted on a Protect. I believe this game it was, yeah, I believe the Metang used Protect at some point versus the Metang in that one interaction, and Violet did not capitalize with agility. Medea does. So now her Metang is going to be impossible to outspeed, and it's just going to keep mashing a Pelly. I'm letting you know right now, too. Odds are this gets another boost. The game was over. Like, on either of these mashes we see here, if it attack boosted Metang, it's probably just wraps for Neomon, because it's just not really a lot you could foresee in these last 2 slots that wouldn't have been shown already, or at least that wouldn't have had the possibility of at least of being shown already. That would have God, what am I saying? Odds are this would have been great if this was gone, and you know, whether it was to boom or the sequence with the mashes. Because, yeah, I mean, maybe you have a Torkoal in the back. I just feel like it would have been... Your team's just too slow, man. Way too slow. It'd have to be like a Flareon at best. Anyhow. Haunter comes out. T-bolts that. That miss obviously sucks, by the way, but, like... At this point, I'm not too sure Pelly being alive or not is the most imperative. Medea forfeits. Neomon is a very kind soul. My bad for the dodge, despite the fact this Metang should have died to Wigglytuff's Fire Blast anyway. And he didn't even have to reveal his last, so I think he played this game really well. It was a very surgical one. I really like Medea's team, though. I can't lie. I'm a fan of this. I think this is a very cool build. It's, at the end of the day, it's traditional boom spam stuff with Torque, Haunt, Metang, Glalie, and then you varied up the water type to be Octillery, but I think it works out nicely. It may not even, it doesn't even have to be Boom Glalie is the funny thing on this team. You can 100% get away with like Spikes, Protect, or even Light Screen, and then go like Shadow Ball EQ if you want. I think that's probably viable here. You'd have enough boom pressure anyway with the other mons. And similar to this team here, I think when you've got the non-bulky water, with you know, when you're dropping Dugong / Wailord / Pelly, you tend to want those bulkier Glalies anyway. There's, wow, I just dropped my earbud. There's some EVing you can do on Haunter as well, but I don't really find that to be reliable as like a special wall or anything. It's a freaking Haunter. Now, why am I showing you this game? No reason at all. No reason at all. Anyhow, Stories brought Sand. Sand's pretty good in SSNU. Mostly because the most common physical wall is, of course, the Hans. Mr. Mudsdale. Lycanroc plus Sand Slash will overwhelm it with time. You've got Xatu as well to shut it down. Eldegoss will always rapid spin very, very easily. Salazzle even can pressure it, benefits from its removal since technically Horse can EV to avoid a death via +2 Fire Blast. It's like a very clear, you have a very clear game plan with how this build works out. Even like bulky waters, you will just overwhelm them with Sand Slash, Lycanroc's Salazzle, at least in theory. Doug's, meanwhile, kind of just brought some balance. He's got the Teatrum, which is probably banded on this build. It's kind of tough to say that, though, because it could also be Life Orb with DD. Not even Life Orb DD, just like DD. But I say banded because you have no rocker. And so, at least on banded Teatrum, you could throw rocks. You can do it on Scarf as well. I just am always going to assume Scarf Rotom Mow. Anytime I see it, I'm just always going to assume it's got that little Scarf around its neck, man. You know? It's too good of a Scarfer otherwise. Starmie here. Because also, again, Scarf Defog just looks so good here. Starmie is your breaker, so maybe you open up something for like a DD Teatrum because you, I don't know, you pop a Gastrodon or something, dude. Leave me alone. And it, you know, defensive core there, Scavalier, Sylveon, Gastro. Team gets maimed by Alola Negi, by the way, and I said that in prep. So when I saw that it was Eldegoss on this sand build instead of Alola Negi, I was really happy. Not that this team can't beat Alola Negi. Sylveon at least gives it a bit of issue. Starmie can always have Ice Beam. Teatrum's faster and will smoke its pack. Still. So Gigalith led here, pretty standard fare. It's a sand team. Teatrum's led with by Doug, and he just head smashes us into the Shadow Realm. Doesn't die, but it may as well have. Earthquake does nothing. Xatu is thrown out to be the sacrificial bird. Head Smash claims a soul. Now Sand Slash comes out. You may think this is a bulky ground type, but it is not. It dances. It gets head smashed for 70. And a Teatrum sacked here, but honestly, that's all you needed to do. Gigalith now can't really do anything. You have to play it perfectly. You better hope that second setting of sand is all you needed. And Sand Slash at about half, like technically 40 because it's going to get hit by Life Orb. That ain't sweeping anyone. Starmie comes out here, and so you may think it's like a bulky set. No, it's just Scarf Starmie. So Ice Beam picks off the Sand Slash there. There was never any threat of that winning, and it would have had to find a rapid spin speed boost as well. Gastro switches in versus Lycan, and we apparently are a physically defensive variant, so CC bounces right off us. We Earth Power this in the little Chrome Dome. It drops. It's now Eldegoss has to come out. We see a double into Salazzle as the Rotom Mow actually comes in, which, he probably predicted either a Scab or Mow. And now Storky, of course, knows this isn't Scarf Mow because they saw this Scarf Starmie. Fire Blast misses, which realistically, I don't know if it mattered that much, but it was definitely annoying because now Gastro comes out and you just die to Earth Power. Like, you can't do anything with maybe having a Sash and being Encore, because then you could have Encore locked it into Recover. And then I don't actually think the game gets hard because you have Scarf Starmie to always revenge kill, and you just at some point need, like, you will recover up like that one time anyway. You could just sack Rotom Mow later, come back out, get the Earth Power off, and then Starmie can kill. And I don't think Gastrodon being alive or dead really changes much of that sequence. Now, maybe it gets played out that Salazzle just keeps its Sash long term, and that could be annoying, but you also have to keep in mind there's a Gigalith. Sand will break its Sash. This also implies it's Sash, but I think with Xatu plus Goss, it's a fair question. I don't know. I don't want to say it's Sash Lazzle in this build because I just don't think it makes that much sense. You have to play it in the back for so long. You're playing 5v6 most of the game. I don't think it's like it just game plan wise is kind of wacky to me. Cute Piplup in the avatar though, so I respect that. Hope all y'all enjoyed. Metang'S really cool. I really like this guy. He's one of my favorite Pokemon in this tier 2, so it is nice to see people bringing back the agility set, which has kind of been out of fashion for a while. Like I said, for a while people were going like Mash, Boom, Protox, or like Toxic 3 attacks. They just weren't going for the agility stuff. And I think Agility Metang, especially now with Wailord kind of trending downward because people have started going for these, well, I mean, yeah, these builds where you run Spadef Glalie as your water type essentially, and maybe even have the bulkier Haunters to buffer some special hits too. Yeah, Metang'S got some room now to actually do stuff. Thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all tomorrow with my last video before I run off to New York to go have my fun. Peace, y'all. Take care.